Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session on achieving a seamlessly integrated time absence in the payroll system. I hope you all have been having a very good virtual conference so far. And I am Logesh Balasubramaniam, and I am a managing director at PeopleMC, and I predominantly focus on PeopleSoft HCM and related areas. I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and have been practicing consulting in PeopleSoft for over 20 years now. Majority of it has been implementing new modules, implementing the PeopleSoft HCM system, upgrading and enhancing all those standard activities. Now, before we get into the topic, a quick update on who we are, what we do. We are PeopleMC Consulting. I'm part of the PeopleMC Consulting, and we have a large contingent of my colleagues presenting on different topics here at the conference. We are a PeopleSoft specialized Oracle partner and have been consulting in PeopleSoft for over 20 years now. And we are also a SOC 2 certified organization and one of the only Gartner recognized organization for PeopleSoft services in Oracle Cloud as well. And when it comes to our offerings, with the PeopleSoft application, we are a one-stop shop for all services related to PeopleSoft, starting with the implementation, upgrades, enhancements, supporting, and all the other areas related to it. We work across different industry verticals. Healthcare, higher ed, financial services, and public sector are major areas of engagement as well. And many of you would have come across us through one of our training offerings. We are one of the managed partners when it comes to Oracle, and we are also an Oracle University partner as well, and have a number of training offerings that are continuously evolving. We have a number of opportunities that are currently open on our website for registration as well. These are public classes that are pre-scheduled. And we have the QR code in here for you to visit and review if you are interested in that space. So that's a little bit about who we are, what we do, and in terms of the core agenda for the discussion today. First, we wanted to touch upon what's the need for this session, why we are talking about time and labor and absence management right now. And then spend a majority of the time in the system actually showing the latest offerings when it comes to these two areas and business functions. And then we'll come back to the slide deck to discuss about some of the considerations that should go into implementing these modules. And then we'll wrap it up with Q&A. All right. Meanwhile, as the coordinator mentioned here before, if there are any questions, please do post them in the chat window. At different logical points, I'll pause to see if there are any questions and address them as well. With that said, let's get started. And first and foremost, in terms of the need for this topic for discussion today, right? A couple of years ago, I think towards the end of 2023, there was a major announcement from the Kronos Group and Ultimate Kronos Group, which was a merger between the Ultimate company and the Kronos organization, announced that end of life for a couple of their major systems that were on-premise implementations. What it meant is customers have to choose to either move to their cloud service or move away from their on-premise product and unsupported product to other systems, right? And this led to a lot of interest in PeopleSoft customers who were using Kronos products to start evaluating various functionalities, the time and labor and absence related functions within PeopleSoft. So that's a major area of our activities, our engagements in the last year and a half, continuing until now, is the new time and labor and absence module implementations that we are doing. And so this led to the conversation around potentially other customers out there who are interested in exploring these areas. And the purpose of this session today is to basically provide an overview in terms of capability. What can these two modules, time and labor and absence management, do, and how it integrates with the payroll module, and primarily with an idea that there is an overview of capabilities. Each of these module areas are quite elaborate in terms of functionality, and like a full elaborate demo of these modules are would take a little bit more time. If each module could take roughly 3 to 4 hours for a more detailed demo of entire capability. So this session, given that it is a 1 hour insight session, the focus is on the broad capabilities of the modules and how they work together. And if anyone is interested, feel free to reach out. My contact details are in the presentation and as part of the conference website as well. So feel free to reach out if you're interested to explore these things further. All right. So that's the objective behind the session, and there might be some customers who might be already using one or two or both of these modules, or somebody who is probably not using either of these modules. So, but the core objective is to understand, discuss the capabilities, and what is the latest functionality available in the module. Okay. With that, let me get going on this. So when it comes to these three modules, how do they fit together? Like in terms of the process flow, data flow, how do they fit together, right? That's the first thing I wanted to talk about before getting into the system. First, in terms of the process and data flow, typically comes the absence management module. Now, absence management is a standalone module within PeopleSoft. However, many of you may not aware that absence management is included as part of the license of the payroll module. What I mean by that is if you are running PeopleSoft payroll, then you already have license for PeopleSoft absence management as well, and you can implement that module. It's not separately licensed. Unlike time and labor module, if you're currently not using time and labor module, you may not be certified or licensed for that. So you may have to go through a licensing activity before you can use that module. Now, within absence management module, I would call that as like a full suite of functionalities that covers all stakeholders of the HCM application, starting with employees can perform their absence-related self-service tasks in the system. Then comes the managers who can perform their management of their employees' absences using self-service in the system. And then administrative users, typically payroll administrator or time administrators, who can manage the absences processing in the system. So, and fourth, and the final group is essentially the absence related or HR related leaders in the system who have access to various insights that is generated out using the absence data. So all key stakeholders of the absence management as a process have capabilities in the system module that can meet those requirements. Very similar with the time and labor module, where it supports the end-to-end time management aspects, timekeeping aspects of customer, starting with reporting of time reporting, and employees and managers doing self-service tasks associated with collecting time and managing time, or reporting time and managing time. And then the back-end activities around administration of time and approvals and processing of time all the way into payroll. And with payroll, most customers here probably already using payroll. When it comes to the process flow, typically absence comes first. Absence data flows into the time and labor module, and then absence and time information together goes into the payroll module. Now, there are customers who might be using time and labor alone to directly integrate with payroll. There might be customers using absence management alone and directly integrating with payroll. All these combinations are possible. Okay. Let me quickly pause here to see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions, but as I said, feel free to post any questions you may have in the chat window, and I'll review them at different times. All right. And next, I want to sort of briefly spend a little bit of time about the capabilities we need within each of these modules before I switch over to the demo in the system. First, in getting into the absence management function, as I said, employees can do a lot of things when it comes to managing their own absences, starting with requesting their absence, submitting their absence request. As part of submitting their absence request, they can review their balances, absence balances that they have accrued over a period of time. They can forecast their future balances. They can cancel requests that have been submitted earlier. It might have been approved or it may not have been approved. These are all core aspects of managing an absence request. And then comes the ability to set up and manage extended absences as well, like FMLA and other state-specific extended absences policies. Ability to donate leave if you have leave donation policy in the organization, absence management can support that. And the ability to request schedule changes, swap schedules with other employees in your team, and so forth. So we'll see some of those as part of our demo. Um, and then when it comes to managers, managers can, as employees themselves, they can do all things that the employees do. And then they can do a lot of things that the employees do on behalf of their employees reporting to them. So a manager can request absence, forecast absence, cancel absence, perform all those tasks as for themselves and also for their team members as if they are doing it on behalf of them. Some organization may have a practice that supports that or may have policies that may not support that. So the module is flexible enough to handle both. And then obviously managers play a very important role in approvals, right? Any absence request will have to typically go through manager approval process. So managers play a very important role. And managers, in addition to that, they can also manage their employee schedules in the system and also have access to various insights and analytics related to absence data in the system. All of that focused or limited to the scope of the team that reports to them, right? Managers typically don't get access to any employee data outside the scope of their control. So that's all inbuilt within the absence management module. And the third and final aspect is the administrative functionalities. Essentially, all aspects that you would typically see from an administrative standpoint, like work centers and batch processing, when it comes to managing the data across absence, time, payroll, all those common functionalities exist for every module. For absence management, of course, a lot of it is driven out of delivered COBOL processes. Something to be aware of as well. And it also provides administrators with the ability to forecast leave balances and perform the same tasks that employees and managers can do as well. All right. So at a very high level, from a capability standpoint, these are all the different things that different stakeholders can do in the system. So once they get into the system, we'll try to spend a time on covering as many items as possible. When we get into time and labor, very similar. Starts with employee activities. Of course, time and labor is a very elaborate, comprehensive module that provides various options. For example, ability to capture punch time, elapsed time, web time, clock. We will see all of those as we get into the system. And ability to report time against various tasks, manage exceptions, and review what time they're going to be getting paid, ability to submit overtime requests, comp time, various functionalities for employees to do. Managers can do all of that, and in addition to that, can manage the timesheet of the employees reporting to them as well. So the managers can play both roles as an employee themselves and various management approval related functions. They can also, when it comes to managing time, schedule management is a key aspect as well. So managers can do all of those activities. And then administrators play an important role in terms of processing all of that information, approved time-related data, generating the payable time, reviewing, handling exceptions, and sending the data over to the payroll system, right? So all of that entire capability built in as delivered in the application. Now, when it comes to absence and time data integration, as I said before, absence data flows into time and labor modules. So time and labor contains both absence and work time information, which then gets integrated to various modules. Of course, the first and foremost is the payroll module to get for the employees to get paid. But in addition to that, time and labor integrates with other modules like project costing, expenses, and accounts payable for customers who are using PeopleSoft Financials, or if you're using a non-PeopleSoft system for financial, the same APIs and endpoints can be used to provide data or consume data from similar modules from other third-party systems as well. So various capabilities when it comes to how time data has been integrated into other systems. Now with that, let me pause here and switch on to the in-system demo. So let me go to my browser window. And for the purpose of demo, I wanted to focus predominantly on self-service functions. That's the most important aspect when it comes to the getting to know the user experience of the system and functionality, how it is used. So I wanted to focus on that, spend as much time as possible in that area. All right, let me make this a little bit bigger so it's easier for everyone to see. All right. So I have logged in as an employee and predominantly want to focus on time and absence related functions. And all of that aspect associated with time and absence management that is available as part of self-service is consolidated into something called as a time dashboard. So when I go into the time dashboard, I'll wait for the information to load up. With the screen share, I see things are a little bit slower than normal, so let me move this aside. So what we see here is essentially the time dashboard of the employee, and wanted to first walk through in terms of the layout of what we see here and then get into the next steps. So this particular employee that I picked up has multiple jobs in the organization. So the employee has multiple active employments in the organization. So the job that we are seeing is a billing specialist. There is a link to that says select another job. So I can click that to see them. That person also plays another role. That's a manager of accounting. So when I choose that job, then the dashboard, all the information associated with it get refreshed for that particular job. So depending on if employee has only one job that they are currently working on, then that second option, selecting another job, will not appear. So once I choose which job I'm dealing with, then the information, rest of the information is specific to the scope of that job. And as you can see here, there is lot of interactive dynamic information that we can see and access from here. For example, enter time is essentially the entry into the timesheet, but without going to the timesheet, I can see that employee has reported 24 hours already and scheduled to work 40 hours. So that is around 16 hours roughly that is not yet reported. And out of this 24.45 hours, I can see from the summary tile that reported regular hours of 16 and sick hours of 8. There is no specific exception, so 0 exceptions that is currently for me that needs my attention. And then I see that there is a web clock that I'm able to see, and I can punch in, punch out using this web clock. For example, let's say right now it is 10:35 according to the time zone in which this server is running. So this is currently in Pacific time zone, so it's at 10:35 a.m. So let's say I want to punch in at this time. So I'll wait for the punch in to happen. Usually all these steps are basically just take a quick second, and since with the screen share on, I can see that things are a little bit slow to respond. So see how the response as we keeps up as we progress. And then there is, I don't have any leave or comp time that I need to review. And then I can see the payable time for the previous week is shown here. We'll go through all of these items in one by one. And then we have a bunch of tiles here to manage my absences as well. So as I said, the both time and absence information is made available all combined as part of the time dashboard information here. And we'll now sort of deep dive into each of those areas, right? So, all right. So first thing I wanted to show here is the timesheet functionality. Now, for customers who are who've been using PeopleSoft for a long time, earlier days there used to be a classic version of the timesheet, but many years ago, I think 2-3 years ago now, there was a fluid version of the timesheet introduced, and I think majority of the customer these days who are using time and labor are on fluid timesheet already or in the process of moving there, right? So what we are seeing now is the mobile-friendly or fluid version of the employee timesheet. And very broadly, you can see that what period we are looking at. This is for the period current week, October 28 to November 3, 2024. I can change my reporting by different periods. Like I can, if I want to look at my bi-weekly period, monthly period, I can do that. And if I want to move to a completely different period, either a past or a future timesheet, I can do that using the calendar in here. Now, one of the very basic thing to understand is there are two kinds of timesheets. Employees who provide elapsed time entries. For example, they just need to report the number of hours they worked, not the time actual time they worked. They can use an elapsed timesheet format. And employees who are hourly workers typically, who needs to provide their actual work time, typically use the punch format, punch timesheet format. And I don't want to spend a lot of time in here because we have a lot more content to cover. But at a very high level, I wanted to cover a couple of things here. One is, as we can see here, here is a very elaborate example of time entry. Typically, timesheets are much simpler than this, but I wanted to make sure all the information, all the possible capabilities, options are shown here. So this particular example, timesheet has been set up with an in time for an employee to enter, when they take a break, when they are back in after the break, when they go for lunch, when they are back in after lunch, and when they finally um, exit, like close down their work. Now, typically, this combination of sequence of events may not be same for most companies, and all of this is configurable. This is just one variation of it. And we can see here today when I came in and clicked that I'm entering in, my in time has been entered as 10:36, and I can choose and just, that's my regular hours. And when I punch out and other things, other events will get added as shown here. Now, this is one aspect. So let me go ahead and save this for later. Now, the other aspect is, okay, let me just remove that entry just in case. I don't want to disturb the scenarios that I have already set up to show. All right. So what I wanted to show here is, let me wait for this to get saved. The other aspect here is from within the timesheet. You can see the timesheet already has data yesterday and entered some punches, sample punches to show that various time that was employee came in, when they went for a break, when they came in for lunch, all those things. And I have left Wednesday today as a day without any data entered. So reported is 0 and scheduled is 8 hours. And let's say today I didn't show up for work, I didn't feel well, and I didn't show up for work, then the employee can also submit absences from the timesheet itself. So for example, it's today and I'm sick, and I can then elaborate and add more items. I don't have enough hours. I only have the balance of 6 hours, but the system doesn't force the employee to not enter the time, like it doesn't provide a hard stop. All those things are configuration driven. Let's say I had some kind of sickness that made me skip office today. So we'll go ahead and submit that information. And that is submitted out. The absence was submitted. And once I close that window, now the absences is reported on the timesheet as well. So you can now see reported is 8, scheduled is 8, and I basically reported a sick leave on this day. So the aspect around reporting time and absence worked hours and absence hours are all now consolidated into a single view. There is ability to report both work hours and the absence hours from within the timesheet itself. Rest of the data is already pre-populated based on just from a demo perspective. And we can see as I go to the bottom of the timesheet here, see that more elaborate information available in a single consolidated view for the employee. So for example, within this period, right now it is the weekly period. And I can easily see that I haven't worked 8 hours, which is Monday and Wednesday. I have worked on 3 days, whatever is the hours that I've done. So the total reported hours and the total scheduled hours and the deviation of it, all of that information is now available here for review. Now, based on this, I can see that all right, on one day, on a particular day, that is Tuesday, there is a deviation of minus 7.5, meaning I haven't submitted enough time. And this is my punch time, but I might have another scenario where there was potentially I worked another time which is not recorded here, so I can go ahead and add that information as well. But right now, let me skip that. But all of that information, the purpose of the summary is to make sure uh, any of those exceptions can be seen by the employee and addressed right away. Now, that's a quick review of the timesheet, how the timesheet looks, how the timesheet consolidates both work time and absence information. Feel free to let me know if there are any questions and continue to monitor the chat window over here. I don't see any question right now. And the next item I wanted to quickly touch upon is the time summary. Now, time summary is a great place where that we always recommend customers to use for providing an employee with a single view for them, sort of a read-only view for multiple information, starting with the time they have reported. So it provides a calendar view. This is a weekly calendar that we are seeing here. Now, if I want to look at my entire month, I can choose a monthly calendar format, and I can see that first, from a reporter time point of view, how was my time. For example, in this last week, the current week of work, I can see that on today, October 30th, I have reported 8 hours, but those are sick 8 hours. And yesterday, I reported my punch time, which is only adding up to 0.45 of hours. And I can see how different days have different kinds of hours. For example, there is a paid vacation that I've taken earlier in the month. Those vacation hours. So whenever there is holiday or absence hours, you would see the suitcase legend over here versus the regular work hours. And then I can also see the payable time for the entire month broken down by calendar days, including an estimated gross value, which is a dollar figure based on the hourly rate of the employee. Now, whether we want to show that information or not is entirely optional, configuration driven. I can see that for this month, my estimated gross is 3970. However, sometimes the information may not be accurate based on your data in the HR system. So if that's something that would cause confusion, typically customers would choose to not show that info as well. So as we can see here, so days that vacation days have slightly lesser number of estimated cost versus other days work hours. Time that is not yet processed will not be showing any particular dollar value to it. For example, we just submitted the sick hours, 8 hours in here, so that information is not yet processed by the system. So it provides an easy view for both reported time and payable time for employees to see on a calendar format. I don't have any specific exceptions that I have that for me to review, so we'll skip that one. This is the web clock functionality, and as I said before, the web clock information provides the capability to do a quick punch in, punch out activities, and it shows the last action. In this demo environment, a lot of future data has been entered. So this employee has time data entered all the way up until 1/3/2025. That's what we are seeing here. And if the employee wants to choose to do a different punch or go back and enter in a more detailed page, they can go in and do a time entry as well. We can see here it's basically a live running clock, web clock that employee can use to punch in, punch out as well. If employee have ability to report any task like work order or any other information that want to associate with the time, they can do that as well as part of the time details section. Now, going back in here, I wanted to quickly talk about the payable time information, which is we saw the calendar view of it, but this is more of a detailed view, employee have access to the actual time that gets calculated on a period basis. So it could be daily, it could be weekly, monthly. Employee can review all of their payable time, how their pay is getting calculated, what are the codes, and the details of it, which day. For example, if an employee had one particular day where they had worked 12 hours, how is they'll be able to see all information about what is getting allocated as regular hours, what is overtime hours, what is shift differentials, what is double shift, triple shift, all those various calculation results of it, employees will be able to see from the payable time details page. Um, Before I move on to absence related information, I wanted to see if there are any questions. I don't see anything in here, so we'll continue with my discussion. All right, so we already saw how an employee can submit absence from the timesheet. Now, this is essentially a consolidated absence management page where an employee comes in. On the top here, they can see on the left-hand side that their latest three absence requests, or the most recent three absence requests, is what is shown in here. The sick leave that I submitted from the timesheet now, a sick leave I submitted earlier, and a vacation that was submitted earlier and approved. So you can see here, one was already approved, one is still submitted status, and the other one I just now submitted. And then on the right-hand side over here, I can see the all my leave balances depending upon the leave types that are applicable to the employee. I can see the different leave balances here. I can also see my holiday calendar. Since I have multiple jobs, this is the calendar for my current job. And I can expand this information. For example, I can expand the balances to see the more details associated with it. So I'll wait for that to pop up. And as I mentioned before, the typical response time is much quicker on these screens. So I can see here there are different kinds of leave, and it shows my balances as of a certain date, really old dates in the demo environment. But I can click to see all the details associated with it. For example, I have a vacation balance of 146 hours, and I can click to see how the number was arrived, like how have I been accruing that information. And just like in any other demo, it's some kind of an error. I think it also comes down to this overall slow responsiveness of the system. I'll go to another page. When I go to the other page where the balance information is available, I'll show that detail. So for now, I'll skip that. Already saw the holiday calendar info here. And we already applied for an absence using this page. So I think we are all good here. So let me go back. I do see a question come through. So while I go back to the home page, let me see. Are employees able to review, edit their reported time before submitting their managed for approval? Absolutely. So when it comes to reported time, they can save the time as many times before even submitting. Even after submitting, if they want to change the time, the timesheet is for the current period is always open, right? They can edit, they can submit again, time changes, they can modify it any number of times. Depending upon whether the approvals are enabled on the reported time, which means the employee is submitting, it immediately goes to manager for approval, or the approval is enabled on the payable time, meaning the time submitted by the employee gets processed and then it goes to manager for approval. That would determine whether it will already be with the manager for approval by the time employee edits it. But regardless, employee can edit at any given time. There is configuration to say should employee have access to edit prior period timesheets? If yes, how long? 3 months, 2 weeks, we can decide however long, and future period timesheets. Can employee access future timesheets, or and if yes, how long they can update as well? All those things are configuration driven. So yes, and just see a comment regarding approvals at reported time versus payable time. Yes, both options are available. Pros and cons, there are pros and cons to it. Should manager be able to approve the time after overtime and shift differentials, etc., are calculated, or should they be approving the time, the actual work time by the employees, right? All those are the considerations before deciding which approval you want to enable. And time is pretty much entirely dynamic. What I mean by that is there is no need for managers to reject time for employees to edit it. Employees can come in, I enter something wrong, I incorrect, they can edit it. It will re-trigger the approval process depending upon where in the approval process it is. Employee doesn't have to wait for any activity for them to edit time at all. Absence is a little bit different where I submitted absence. The absence is now pending approval. I cannot edit that absence unless a manager rejects that approval or pushes it back to me. But if the absence is approved and I need to change that, then I need to cancel an approved absence and then submit a new absence request because that approved absence might already be processed by the system. So absence is something once it's approval in the approval process, then editing depends on whether the absence gets rejected or not. Okay. So that also leads me to this one, which is cancel absences. So I can see that I have a submitter. Today I submitted a sick leave, and let's say I decided to show up to work. I can select an action reason saying doctor's appointment cancelled. So I want to cancel my absence. And since this is not approved, it's an immediate cancellation. Nothing is, even if it's approved, it's fine. It's your employee can still cancel an approved leave as well. So now that is cancelled. All right. So that's the standard absence and time management tasks, right? Those are typical on day-to-day basis standard absence and time management tasks. The next one is the extended absence and leave donation schedule changes. These are typically features that even customers who are using absence management may or may not be using. Some things are relatively new, like schedule management functionality. Self-service for schedule management is relatively new, so we'll see that. External absence requests and leave donation have been around for a while, but new things have been released in those areas as well. Let's quickly see an extended absence functionality. And from an extended absence standpoint, it is essentially, let me close this. Extended absence standpoint, the functionality that is around is providing a framework to manage the various policies and decision making that needs to happen around managing the extended absences, which many customers typically do have administrators manage it outside the system, like in Excel sheets and things like that. So what is delivered is, for example, depending upon what kind of extended absence is set up, let me go with FMLA, medical, and I'll choose the reason. So the type, take, all those things are configurable. It basically initiates a guided process. So the guided process is to basically help employees to do a sequence of steps to submit this absence request, which then goes to an administrator. Typically, extended absences, as delivered, the workflow doesn't involve a manager because the extended absence is more of an administrative handling rather than a manager approval. Of course, we have had customers asking to notify managers when an employee submits this request. All those can be done. But typically, the delivered workflow is it basically notifies the extended absence administrator, basically, who are essentially the people who would be more close to the policies and tracking, etc. So in this case, let me start with basic information. Let's say I'm planning an extended absence, so typically a planned activity from 2 weeks from now, and then I'm going to take a couple of weeks off. Actual return date I may not know now. Let's say a planned activity. In this case, none of this is planned. Let me see. Choose one of the planned options and save that information. And I think the FMLA eligibility is essentially the most important aspect of this functionality, which is the ability to set up the rules associated with calculating the eligibility, which is where administrative users will be spending majority of the time trying to do a lot of formulas and calculations and reports in an Excel sheet to arrive at eligibility and track the eligibility information. Now that's the part that is essentially automated in this framework. So this page that we see here is entirely configurable in terms of what sections are needed. Now we can see here, this is a medical, FMLA medical that I've set up. Now, there are some basic questions to answer. Employee spouse works for the same company. Let me say yes. If I know the employee number, I can provide that. Let me say oops. All right, I think I pressed tab and type at both the same time. So let me wait for that response to come back. All right, that's that. Let me do it again first, right? But I think I shouldn't try to get into the filter there. Looks like it is or take a little bit of time. Let me see if I want to kill this and do this. Let me just go through with another window over here. All right, I think that's going to still continue the spin, so let me just go through with this item. So I think the one that I just started is in here. It's already saved. So yes, let me edit this. So I was in the second step, actually, the validation section, right? So that's let me go to that step. And what I was trying to do here was essentially to find a spouse information in here. It started spinning, so I'll skip that part. So the rules associated with the eligibility, right? Whether the employee has been here for 12 months, whether the employee has worked 1250 hours in the past 12 months, that the employer already have at least 50 employees within a 75-mile radius, things like that. These are not employees' choices. These are set rules that are configured on the back end. And basically, there is a section that says validate section. There is a button that says validate section. And when I do that, basically system validates this employee's data, like their service hours, their eligibility, and the requested leave gives a result. Requested leave is greater than the available leave. So basically tells them that they may not be eligible. It's not like it's rejecting it. It's basically telling them, oh, in this case, the employee is eligible. Still doesn't, even if they are not eligible, it doesn't reject them. So for example, in here, the employee has been employed for at least 12 months. The employee has been here to 60 months, 5 years. Their current hours in the current year is 1320. The requirement was 1250. So since those criteria are being met, it basically said, yes, the employee is eligible. And then they proceed. They can add attachments, supporting documents, any medical information or any other information they want to add a note. They could do all of that, basically providing more information to the administrators and basically review and submit that information. This then initiates the approval process, sends it to the typically the FMLA admin in this case, extended absence process for FMLA. So basically, there is a delivered role that can be set up to include people who are administering this activity. And then once the approval happens, then the absence request to basically deduct leave from the different leave buckets can be submitted in the system. So the framework is basically to provide the guided process and the validation activities. And this is also part of the standard absence management functionality that that all customers who are using payroll have access to. There is no additional licensing or any other aspects associated with the extended absence functionality. All right. And then managing leave donation, fairly a straightforward activity. A recent update is the fluid version of Pages, the mobile-friendly Pages is a relatively new addition. So in this case, let's say organization can set up leave banks for employees to donate, or if leave donation allows employees to donate leave to other employees, they can do that as well. So in this case, let's see, what do we have here? A leave donation. Let's say I want to create a new request. I think there are a couple of leave programs that are available. Reasons for why I'm doing this, let's say a catastrophic leave sharing. Is this something that I want to do one time or recurring? Let's say I want to do one time. I can see that it's a recurring one time. No, it's not recurring, it's one time. Ends on end of this year, 90 of 60, 600 hours balance. So this is the total balance I have, and the maximum that can be allocated all is shown here. So let's say I have vacation right now of 146.52. I can, there is policies that govern that says monthly allowed range is 8 to 24 hours. Maximum program length is 80 hours. There are rules. As per your rule setup, this information will appear here. Let's say I want to choose 16 hours. 16 hours to submit, and I can say I want to submit. So this is basically submitting to a bank or a common pool. But if I'm submitting it to an individual employee, then I get to choose the employee to whom which I'm submitting. Once again, configurable workflow approval to manage the approval process as well. Now, if an employee is receiving a leave, then if I have received anything, then I have ability as an employee to accept the donation. In this case, I don't have anything pending for my acceptance. Nobody has donated any leave, so I'll skip that part. But there is self-service to both donate leave and accept leave donation. Both are part of the leave donation functionality. Doing a quick time check. I know we're getting into the last 10 minutes. I'll try to wrap up this last item fairly quickly. The next one is the schedule management from a self-service point of view. Another relatively new feature that was released in one of the recent images is the ability for employees to either give up their shift or trade their shift with another employee. So for example, I want to give up my shift, let's say, which means I potentially, if I'm planning to work, then I need another shift to work on that day. So let's say for now, I want to choose my shift on Monday. I can see what's my scheduled hours in my shift. So in this case, I can see here on Monday, 8 a.m., meal is at 12, back in at 1, break at 3, back in at 3:15, and wrap up at 5. That's my standard schedule. So this is what I'm giving up if I'm doing this. So let's say I can say a time afternoon shift. Maybe for some reason I want to take some time off on, I'm not available on a full day. I wanted to take the afternoon shift and start my work late. So I basically submitted that request. And then manager can approve it and assign alternate shift, etc. Or I can, if I have employees that I want to trade with, I can do that as well. I'm using the trade shift function. But I wanted to go back to a presentation to wrap up a few things before the end of time for the allocated time. So feel free to log any questions, anything else that anyone wants to report. This one is spinning. All right. Now, we saw time and absence, and I briefly mentioned earlier that absence is the starting point. Typically, absence data flows into time and then goes into payroll. Now, when we do all these three modules together, like if you're already using payroll and implementing the other modules, or having a payroll and time and adding absence module, how does the processing sequence work, right? So that's what is called out here. Typically, timesheet lockdown, and you would have a threshold up until when the time can be submitted, when the pay period is ending and it's ready to be processed, depending upon your pay cycle, your pay processing window, pay cycle processing window, you will have a threshold, a cutoff point until which employees would have access to submit their timesheets. After that cutoff point, you would run your time administration process. Now, depending upon where you have approvals, whether reported time or payable time, you want to make sure there is a window for managers to approve before you run that. Then, this is purely from an administrative standpoint. We are taking out all the self-service activities in here. The focus is on administrative tasks. Then runs the leave donation process. So any approved leave donations will then run and will be processed, and appropriate leave buckets updated. Then from an absence point of view, the absence period needs to be calculated and processed. Absence processing is very similar to payroll processing. You initiate a period, you run multiple times, you can calculate and review results multiple times before you finalize. So run the calculate absence and payroll process, fix any absence related exceptions that might be there from an administrative standpoint, then address, make sure no errors are there, and do a final recalculation and finalize the absence period, absence calculation. Now, this finalizing of absence is what is going to make the update the accruals and takes, adjustments, all those things on for that particular pay period. And employees, when they go to the self-service and review their absence balances, it will show their latest balance considering the data that is processed in the current period. And then once that information is that activity is complete, all the latest absence related info is now sent to time and labor. And then from timesheet, it goes into the payroll. And before you do that, you basically create your pay sheet, load all of your time and absence data from time and labor, and then start calculating the payroll, which would be again an iterative process before payroll is finalized. But once the time data has been moved over to payroll, then you can release the timesheet lockdown so that employees can have access to it. Depending upon whether you allow corrections and stuff like that on the timesheet, then based on those settings, timesheet is open now for the employees for the subsequent periods. Now, then proceed with the payroll confirmation task. So this is typically the sequence of processes that happens from a administrative side of things to handle time, absence, extended absence, leave donations, and feed all of that into payroll information. Okay. All right. I wanted to quickly touch upon the time, absence, and pay insights. Now, instead of screenshots, what I can do is I can actually quickly log in as an administrative user. And I'm a little bit hesitant on the performance, how long it's going to take, but let's see if it quickly loads up. So one of the major benefits of doing absence, time, payroll all in one system is essentially to have the ability to analyze all of that information at one place, right? So for example, all these three modules, payroll, time and labor, absence, have detailed insights and dashboards that are available earlier as part of Kibana server Kibana dashboard technology. Now as part of OpenSearch functionality, the same capabilities are available. So you can see here, I can review from a payroll standpoint, what sort of, how am I trending from a payroll cost, payroll operational aspects as well. I can review my absence insights, and the time insights, all those different aspects when it comes to how the organizationally, how you are trending in terms of the absence and time and worked hours and payroll cost, all those information are essentially available in a single place. So this is the absence dashboard. Just wanted to open it up because it wasn't easily visible on the tile. So all of this information available as part of a single place is one of the benefits of doing all of this in a single system, right? So I just wanted to quickly bring it up, but info screenshots are available on the slide deck as well. All right, I'll pause here to see, we are into the last few minutes. I just see a reminder pop up as well. So any questions from anyone regarding any of the items that I covered or anything related to these modules that I did not cover as well?
Lokesh, this is amazing. Like, thank you so much.